everyone, my name is Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you for joining me today in my baking corner where I'm going to unbox my new grain mill. Well, my only grain mill. So this is the WonderMill Junior Deluxe, I think is what it's called. And it's basically this mill here. It's a stone grinding mill, so it keeps all of like the whole grains in the mill, and then you buy whole grain wheat and you grind it. But the cool thing about this is that it comes with these stone milling plates, which are for grains, but it also comes with stainless steel plates called burrs, stainless steel burrs, which grind things like, well, which grind like fatty things, so it can grind nuts and beans and stuff like that. So I'm really excited. It can basically grind anything. I got it from the Bread Beckers Incorporated in Woodstock, Georgia. I also bought a bunch of grain, but there you go, breadbeckers.com. And I'll post a link down below, so if you're interested. There are two other places, like small businesses, that sell these. One I think is in Nebraska and one is in Utah. I went with the one in Georgia, which is closest to me. You can also get it on Amazon, but I prefer supporting small businesses, and it wasn't that much money, and I could buy the grain along with it. So I have 16 pounds of grain. I have hard white wheat, hard red wheat, some soft white wheat. I got some millet, which I mostly got because it's like an ancient grain that they used to grow in, well, I'm sure they still grow it in Africa, but it was originally grown in Africa. And I teach an African history class, and I thought it would be fun to like try it. I don't know. I just wanted something weird and fun, so I decided to go with millet. But Bread Beckers has some really interesting grains that you can buy from them. So, but I'm so excited. I have been wanting this mill for 15 months now, and every time I went online to buy it, it said that there was a waiting list, or it was out of stock and you had to pre-order. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll just check again close to the time. But it was always like 3 or 4 or 5 months out. And then in October, it just wasn't even shipping at all. Like there was no date at all. And then I got some money just as like gift money because of a promotion at work and getting tenure and promotion. And so I decided that I would use that money on something I've been wanting, and it was back in stock. Anyway, enough of that. Let us unpack it. So I have a packing list here, and it should have all the stuff. Ooh, this is gonna be noisy, I'm sorry everybody. That is empty. We're just gonna put it on the floor for now. We'll pick it up later. So we have, oh, this is the clamp, because it clamps onto the table. And after I kind of pull everything out, I'm gonna put it together, probably off camera, and then we'll grind some wheat, because of course we're gonna grind some wheat. This is the flour guide. So this is like this part here. This is the handle. We have our stone burr. Oh, it's heavy. And our steel burr. Okay, we have, this is the handle opening tool, which is a nylon sleeve. We have adjustable knobs. So that's for the augers. And then we have the augers. So this is the masa auger, which is larger, and so it's for like larger things like corn, but also for wet. It's for wet grinding. So it's also the nuts and stuff. And then we have the regular auger, which doesn't have a picture, and that's for the grains. And then, oh, this is way lighter than I was anticipating this to be really heavy. And we have a brush, a cleaning brush. And I think that that is everything in the box. So I'm going to move the box onto the floor. This is the main piece. And so if you've noticed, I'm sorry about the crinkling. So normally this hopper is separate from the actual body. And so it can come loose, it can come off. This is also a nice big hopper, so it will hold more grain. So I'm gonna put this together with not the steel burr set, but the stone set. And I'm going to, you know, set it up so we can maybe grind some grain. So I will be back when this is set up because you guys don't want to see me struggle with this. Okay, I put it together. I'm sweating. It was not self-explanatory. The directions, just wait. Attach handle crank to auger shaft of mill, tighten handle bolt securely. There were like 15 pieces to this handle. I think that the handle is supposed to come with it. I don't know. I watched some videos. I inferred some things from those videos, but the problem is that this is a brand new model, like this year. And so all of the instructional videos are for the old model, which I don't have. We're gonna see. So we are going to, sorry, you're gonna see me way large and not my face. We're gonna do some hard white wheat, mostly because it's in a single bag. And I have a nice clear bowl here. And oh, it's double bagged for not exploding. And we have hard white wheat. So let's pour it into our cup here. And I do have tins, I think, that I'm going to keep these in. But we're going to pour it into the hopper. And oh man, that's nice. So that cup only comes to about here. So this can hold a lot of wheat, which is really nice. Which again is another reason why I wanted this one, because it's a solid unit and the hopper's really big. So I'm gonna scoop my chair out of the way. Now you turn it clockwise and it's gonna make a horrible noise, I think. So let's see. I am right-handed, so we're gonna try and do this right-handed. While you're watching me struggle grinding this grain, and instead of just listening to the sound of the mill, I thought I would talk a little bit about the history of bread as a cultural artifact and also as like a physical, how people used to make bread artifact. This is a lot of work. In case you're wondering, we're not done yet. Ooh, that's fine though. Okay. Bread is kind of amazing because it's essentially just 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, and yeast. You can add other things to it, but that's essentially what it is. And according to Michael Pollan in his book Cooked, it's an ingenious technology for improving the flavor, digestibility, and nutritional value of grass. So it lets humans eat grass. I'm gonna have like Hulk arms by the end of the summer from grinding grain. But, and here, we're gonna get real here. So, this company also sells electric mills, and you can buy electric mills. But I wanted to get this mill, not just because like it's neat, but also because it's something that I can use when I'm teaching my food class. I teach a history of food class. And one of the things that I try to teach my students is that everything that we do when we're cooking took more time. So Like, I have them grind their own spices using like a mortar and pestle, essentially. So I thought that this kind of a machine would be at least give them some idea of the time it took to grind grain. So when we look at like Roman soldiers, for example, were given a pound of grain or 2 pounds of grain a day, and they had to like grind it and cook it, right? And make bread out of it. And so that takes time, right? So the grinding takes time and it takes energy, because I'm already tired. I'm like talking to you because I'm a little out of breath from grinding this grain. Okay, back to grinding, because we're gonna grind this cup. We have a lot left.
I want to start the conversation about the history of bread with a discussion of its cultural significance historically, and this is focusing on Europe and the ancient Middle East because that's what I know in my work, and then talk about it as like a food product. And essentially, bread represents civilization. It was a signifier of a civilized people. It also differentiated religions, like, right? Bread is an important part of all different religions, and it reflected social status.
Okay, folks, this is really hard work. It makes me appreciate all those past people. Although, to be perfectly fair, the people that I usually teach about, so like medieval people, they would go to a mill. But if you think about like people in the Americas who were grinding corn, grinding masa with like large rocks in kind of basins, that was a lot of work. That was a lot of work.
Let's talk about bread as a representation of civilization. And this, of course, was in the minds of ancient people. The ability to bake leavened bread, so bread that rises, requires settlement of some kind because it takes time to rise bread. And so ancient civilizations saw bread as a signifier of civilization. We see this idea reflected in ancient texts, and one of the oldest texts that we have is called the Epic of Gilgamesh, and that is where Gilgamesh, who is the king of Uruk in ancient Sumeria, is abusing his power, and so the people beg the gods to create someone to defeat him, and they create a wild man. And in order to tame the wild man, they send a harlot, a temple harlot to him named Shamhat. She tames him through having sex with him, but he is still a wild man. And the way that he becomes a human is through eating human food, which we read about in the text.
We're almost down to the bottom of the hopper.
Enkidu knew nothing about eating bread for food, and of drinking beer he had not been taught. Enkidu ate the food until he was sated. He drank the beer 7 jugs. He splashed his shaggy body with water and rubbed himself with oil and turned into a human.
Unsurprisingly, they sell machines that will make this, that will turn this into electric. What's it called? An electric mill. And they also sell attachments so you can attach it to like a powerful hand drill.
What this quote tells us then is that it is the eating of the processed food, the bread, and the beer, the washing with the water, and the rubbing with oil that separates humans from animals, because Enkidu was essentially an animal before he did these things, and bread was an important part of that. Similarly, the ancient Greeks viewed themselves as civilized bread and olive oil eaters, and the people to the north as savage barbarians who ate lots of meat and drank milk and hunted, right? The Greeks didn't really do that. It was not part of their culture. In fact, the ancient Greeks ate very little meat and perhaps 1 to 2 pounds of meat a year for religious services. And that brings us to bread in religion. And I'm in particular going to talk about Christianity because that's, again, what I study. But if we look at the communion, the Eucharist, we see that an important part of that is bread, right? Bread is the body of Christ in Christianity. And we have questions of whether that bread should be leavened or unleavened bread. We have bread as a form of penance in the Middle Ages, where the penitents would eat barley bread as opposed to wheat bread, which was finer. We also see bread as punishment in the Bible. In Genesis 3:19, it says, "In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return to the earth." This is basically Adam's punishment for eating the apple, is that he then has to eat bread. It's also what sets him apart from the divine in paradise and makes him human, as it did in the Epic of Gilgamesh. These similarities shouldn't be surprising, since the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Bible were both written generally in the same area, although centuries apart. But it's this idea in the Bible of bread that gets transferred into European and Christian culture. And finally, I want to talk about bread as a reflection of social status. And this is in the type of bread. So white bread was seen as high class and more refined, and brown bread or gruel bread was for lower classes, and it was much more rough. The way bread was produced showed us who was important and had power. The person who controlled the mill and the oven in a village or in a manor controlled the food, and that was a huge status symbol. And finally, bread connects people. To break bread indicates an event full of trust and fellowship, and companion literally means a person with whom we break bread. Pan is bread.
Because the thing is that it only goes clockwise. So that's why you can't run it the other way, because that's not the way the millstones work. So there's a really neat story of a woman called Marjorie Kemp, and I make my students read Marjorie Kemp every semester almost, because she's so interesting. I mean, she's really annoying, but she's really interesting. But at the beginning of her kind of autobiography, and it's she basically wrote the first autobiography, I think, in the English language. Definitely by a woman in the English language, but I think even in the English language. But anyway, she lived in like the 1430s and 40s. It's a religious text, and basically she owned this mill, and she was very prideful of her mill, and so she was punished with the horses like not going forward. They only went backwards. And this is a problem because the mill won't work if it goes backwards. And so this was like a sign of punishment from God. Anyway, when students read that, I might have them grind grain like in class, and then they can understand like why that's such a problem.
And Marjorie's pride in her mill reminds us of the social status that she coveted as the person in charge of the food. And the punishment of the mill not working reminds us of Adam in Genesis being punished with bread.
But it is very clear how much easier it is when it's just the stone. Yeah, and that feels pretty done, I would say. That feels pretty empty. We're done. That took quite a long time for my flour here.
And finally, I want to just talk about bread as a staple food in the Middle Ages in particular. Here is a picture of a couple who run an oven, and ovens were a kind of public service. They would get paid in dough, and people would make their dough and bring it to the oven of the village or the town. You didn't want everyone to have an oven because of fire risk. In the early Middle Ages, bread was secondary to meat, but as woods and other hunting grounds became private for kings and nobles, meat consumption was reduced and people turned to bread and other cereal products. In the later Middle Ages, bread was often 50 to 70% of the calories for lower class people. For example, the daily ration for a couple working on the land of Beaumont-le-Roger in 1268 was a large loaf and 2 small loaves of bread weighing nearly 5 pounds, a gallon of wine, half pound of meat or eggs, and a bushel of peas. So this is a significant amount of bread for 2 people working in kind of manual labor. For wealthy people, bread was used as trenchers during feasts, so basically plates, to catch meat juices, and used trenchers were given to the poor or the dogs. And these trenchers were often colored with saffron, which was yellow, parsley, which was green, or sandalwood, which was pink. And so bread was a critical part of the caloric intake of medieval people. And this was the same for ancient people as well. We talk about bread and circuses in ancient Rome, where the Roman population would get either a certain amount of grain for a reduced price or for free, or would actually get bread. So that's it for the history of bread for today. I've already gone over the time I was grinding, and we'll take it back to the corner.
I think it's going to be neat. it's going to be a lot of work to get any amount of grain out of it. My normal bread baking takes 5 to 6 cups of flour. So it'll probably take me a half hour to grind that grain. But I kind of want to see if there's a difference in how it tastes. So I might actually continue to grind grain and then bake some bread tomorrow, bake some sourdough tomorrow, because I just baked some regular bread the other day, like 2 days ago, or yesterday. I baked it yesterday. So I'm gonna do more grinding and see how much grain I can get out of it. I might do a little mixture of hard white and hard red, because I think the hard grains are the bread grains. But I think honestly I'm just gonna kind of experiment with all sorts of stuff and see where it gets me, because this is kind of fun, I have to say. The other thing is, I think it will be good for when I do my historical baking, because although the wheat isn't the same, the grinding will be the same, and so it will work more like historical grain. Although it is now 9 o'clock, so I may not grind this today. I may grind it tomorrow. That's my new mill. I'm pretty excited. You will see this again, I'm sure. And you know, we'll make peanut butter sometime or something like that. So thanks for coming along with me to unbox and try out my new WonderMill. Like I said, I got this at the Bread Beckers Inc. Here is their information, and I'll put it down. I'll put their website down below. It was not cheap. I wouldn't have gotten it if it weren't a special occasion and I hadn't gotten some gift money from my grandparents. But I can use it for all sorts of different things, and I'm really excited about it. So there you have it. WonderMill Junior Deluxe from Bread Beckers. I'll also put the WonderMill website down below so you can see if you're interested in getting one, where you can get it closer to you. Like I said, there are 2 other places that sell them, one in Nebraska and I think one in Utah. So yeah, thanks for joining me. I'm gonna stop babbling now. I think I'm tired. I'm gonna go stitch some things and put this in a baggie and bake with it tomorrow. So with all that being said, please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye.